Hello and welcome to People in Profit. I'm Charles Pellegrin, and this week we head to Abu Dhabi, where the world's energy leaders come together every year for ADIPEC, one of the world's largest energy events. Whether it's oil and gas or renewables, it's all being discussed there. And while temperatures are rising globally, so it seems is energy demand. At least that's what the UAE's Minister for Industry and Advanced Technologies, Sultan Al Jaber, declared at the opening ceremony. Take a listen.
Electricity demand will keep surging through 2040. And as a result, renewables will more than double by 2040. LNG will grow by 50%. Jet fuel will grow by more than 30%. And oil will stay above 100 million barrels per day beyond 2040.
So what does this all mean going forward? Thankfully, we're joined by Gaurav Sharma to get more insights on this. He's an independent energy analyst and known on social media as the oil holic. Gaurav Sharma, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be on the program. Thank you for having me.
So statements about healthy oil demand coming from energy leaders at ADIPEC, this as OPEC Plus, so half of the world's oil output, agreed to put a pause on planned output increases in early 2026. So how should we interpret those signals?
I think in terms of demand, we can take the holistic energy demand and compartmentalize and take oil demand. Now, specifically on energy demand, we keep hearing that the data centers of this world, the hyperscale data centers, are going to call more and more on the world's power grids. So that is correct. Within the next 2 to 3 years, the base load for this world, we're going to need more power than an entire Japanese footprint. So basically, you'd add the entire power demand of Japan as a nation to the world's power grids within 2 to 3 years. And that is tremendous. That's almost 1,000 terawatt hours. That's power demand for you. Specifically on oil demand, I think Dr. Sultan Al Jaber is right. We are possibly looking at oil demand, global oil demand, north of 100 million barrels per day. So is that something that we should consider a baseline case? Most definitely so. But Charles, one thing there is that this demand would fluctuate. Now, at this point in time, when we are being serviced by the global oil and gas community, demand growth, I should say, is somewhere in the region of 1.3 million barrels per day. You know, if you took an average of what IEA is saying, what OPEC is saying. But look at the production. Production growth from non-OPEC alone, the Brazils, the Canadas, the Guyanas, the United States of this world, is more than that figure. And there is OPEC oil. You bring all of that together, there is too much oil in the market, my friend.
So too much oil, yet the International Energy Agency sticking by its predictions that demand will peak by the end of the decade, somewhere by 2029, I believe. So that's not the consensus among OPEC nations, for instance. So what's your take on this? Where's the peak going to be?
I think it's not surprising that IEA and OPEC have divergent perspectives on when oil demand is going to peak. You also have a range of forecasts ranging between 2029 and 2035. Now, one thing I would say, Charles, on the subject of peaking is people predict peaks and then they get recalibrated, they get revised. Now, we've been talking about, the death of coal for a number of years. But even coal has not died yet because India and China continue to use coal in their power base. Now, transfer that case to oil. It is well and good to offer projections on when oil might peak, but oil, whether it peaks or not, would still be a very, tangible part of the consumer dynamic, of the energy consumption dynamic. And at least until 2040, it will play a major role in the energy mix. So we can't just say snap and we're done with oil. But that is the conundrum. That is the investment conundrum that the energy community is facing. When coal has not yet retreated fully, how can we expect oil to retreat? And when you are thinking about 5, 10, 15, 20-year investment horizons by some of the world's largest energy companies, they cannot afford to sort of forget that oil and natural gas especially are part of this wider dynamic.
We mentioned how various oil companies around the world are dealing with the current set of circumstances and are looking to benefit from the boom or for the surge in energy demand, notably because of AI. And it seems, at least along the lines of Western oil majors, the trend right now seems to be more towards cost cutting, to trying to streamline their operations, to try and be more efficient. But investment seems to have been a key word of the day at ADIPEC. So how'd you put these two ideas together? And where'd you get the investment if everyone's trying to cut costs?
See, it's a great question. If you look at the wider market dynamic, and we discussed that the potential for there being too much oil in the market, I think things will come to a head early in 2026 or to the middle of 2026. And there is a feeling that there'll be too much oil in the market. In such a scenario, if oil falls below $60 and potentially even $50, companies have to optimize their operations. Now, at a time like this, they may cut costs elsewhere, but what they do is they try to upscale some of the state-of-the-art technologies they deploy. And that includes automation, that includes AI, because these technologies help these companies produce more efficiently, go to a place where they can improve their margins in what is, how shall I say, a very cyclical business where prices keep going up, they keep coming down. So they have to plan for the future, and AI and automation are helping them plan for the future. I think one thing also to note is that some of the big state-owned entities of this world, they're out here in the Middle East, ADNOC, Aramco, Qatar Energies, they've got deep pockets, they've got robust balance sheets. So these guys can come forward and invest in automation and invest in AI. I've done some research for Schneider Electric, and some of that research is coming to the fore. It involved asking, it's part of an ongoing global report, which involves asking a number of C-suites all around the energy sector, what will they do with AI and what is their investment towards automation going to be? And 80% of the C-suites that Schneider Electric polled in this region replied by saying that they will invest more and more on automation for one simple reason alone: improved efficiencies, improved throughput, and you know what? That's joined at the hip with better sustainability performance, improved carbon targets. So technology, in the simplest of terms, has become an enabler.
And what about investments in the diversification of energy sources, in renewables, for instance, for some of these legacy oil and gas groups? We've heard, for example, BP scaling those back. Is there no more room to invest more in the renewables for these groups?
I think what you have seen so far was that the market had a bit of a froth in it. Now, it's not just BP. Total Energies, Chevron, ExxonMobil, they will not overtly say that they have parked their renewable energy targets. But what has happened is that the froth has gone out of the market, the realism has returned, and the expression that you hear around these parts at ADIPEC and in Abu Dhabi is that it's a return to a hark back to oil and gas basics. So what some of these companies are doing is their investments are continuing at a reasonable pace when it comes to renewable energies, but their core focus has returned post-COVID to hydrocarbons, especially natural gas.
I want to move on. We've got so much ground to cover here. I want to move on to another topic that's come up a number of times during this ADIPEC. It's the EU's Sustainability Directive, which requires all companies doing business with the bloc to address any environmental and human rights risks on their globalized supply chains, potentially facing fines of up to 5% of global revenue. It's not seen favorably at all by the energy sector. Take a listen, for example, to Darren Woods, the CEO of ExxonMobil.
Well, we're continuing to advocate, make sure that people really understand the disastrous consequences of this legislation. At the end of the day, if we can't be a successful company in Europe, and more importantly, if they start to try to take their harmful legislation and enforce that all around the world where we do business, it becomes impossible to stay there.
Gaurav, I want your take on this. What's so bad about this law? Is it just about the bottom line for these producers? Why can't they get in line behind a law that really just aims to improve outcomes for everyone?
I think there is the premise of the law and what it aspires to achieve is not wrong. The execution and the way it's being rolled out, or what some people in the industry feel that it's been forced upon them, is where it's gotten wrong. So I think it is not the law itself, but it's the diplomacy that sort of, should wrap around it has gone spectacularly wrong. Now, what Mr. Woods here was saying may appear a little bit strong, but what the Qatari government has said is even stronger. They've said if this comes into play, they simply stop selling natural gas, liquefied natural gas to Europe. And that could, in the post-Russia-Ukraine war climate, have disastrous near-term consequences. Now you have Mr. Woods talking about it, and that's the Americans and their shale gas exports to Europe, which are also now a huge part of the European dynamic. All of that comes together, it will fester near-term problems. So I think what is lacking here is the approach taken by the EU. If the approach was a little bit, if I may say so, more diplomatic, involve all the stakeholders, give it a little bit more time, then perhaps gradually have gone. It's just that a lot of the industry think it's been suddenly, dropped on them. And that is where the consternation is coming from.
Gaurav Sharma, you are an independent energy analyst speaking to us from ADIPEC in Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us on France 24.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. As usual, you can follow People and Profit on the podcast platform of your choice or watch all of our previous shows on the France 24 website or app. In the meantime, thank you for watching and stay tuned.
This week in Reporters, we take you to the heart of the Brazilian Amazon. As the country is hosting COP30, a controversial road-building project is underway. The BR-319, abandoned for many years, has just resumed construction under the government of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who's convinced that the region can be developed while protecting the flora and fauna. But this road provides prime access to illegal foresters and could have unprecedented ecological and health consequences. Watch Reporters on France 24.